Hey everybody, I hope you guys all doing safe. So in today's video, we're taking a look at this. This is the Vivo X Fold 2. It's the newest foldable phone from Vivo. And if you follow my channel lately or for the past couple of years, you will know that I thought Vivo's X series of flagships, starting with the X70 Pro Plus to the X80 Pro to the X90 Pro Plus, were among the very best camera phones that I've ever tested. And Vivo's very first folding phone, the X Fold, which came out mid last year, also impressed me because it was the first phone to offer a bunch of new technology, including a dedicated in-display fingerprint sensor in a foldable phone, and also a camera system that was very close to its slab flagship, including a relatively large main sensor and a 5x periscope zoom lens. And so I was very excited when Vivo announced the X Fold 2. I quickly imported one from Trinity Electronics in Hong Kong. They ship to the US and Europe too, so if you're interested in buying a phone that's China only, you might want to look at them because they will get your phone very fast. So anyway, after using this thing for about a day and a half, so this is by no means a full review, I have to say that my early impressions are I'm a little bit disappointed. And keep in mind, that doesn't mean this is a bad foldable phone, it's just my standards are very, very high. But let's go over what's good first. So you still have a 6.5-inch outside display that looks very good, 120Hz refresh rate. And then when you're on full, you have an 8-inch OLED panel, gets a maximum brightness of 1800 nits, so it's a very bright looking screen. Again, 120Hz refresh rate, and the crease is barely visible. You know, this is not news by now for anyone who are used to Chinese foldable phones. They all use that same water drop folding mechanism that allows the hinge to be a lot less noticeable. You see, only when the light is shining on it and you move it at a specific angle will you see it. Otherwise, when you run your finger through it, you don't really feel the crease. This is obviously a big improvement from the Galaxy Z Fold 4, whose crease is very deep and you can feel it with your finger. And of course, the Vivo X Fold 2 folds completely flat, unlike the Galaxy Z Fold 4, and the hinge can stay in place at any angle. I would say the hinge is not as sturdy as the Z Fold 4's, but it's still steady enough that it can keep in place at quite a wide range of angles. Around the back, you have a triple camera system headlined by a 50 megapixel main camera, f1.8 aperture, image sensor size of 1/1.49 inch, so 1.5-inch sensor. So it's a kind of large image sensor compared to other foldable phones, but if you compare it to a slab phone or even something like a Huawei IMX866, the image sensor, it's a little bit small. And then you have a pair of 12 megapixel cameras, one for the ultra wide, one for a 2x telephoto zoom lens. So there is no periscope zoom lens in this camera system. You only have a 2x telephoto zoom lens now. So this is in fact a downgrade from the first Vivo X Fold, which had a 2x zoom lens and a 5x periscope zoom lens on top. And overall, the camera system hardware is just not as mind-blowing as I would have come to expect from a Vivo flagship. Now granted, this is a foldable phone, so we have to cut some slack, but we have seen phones like the Huawei Mate X2, the Huawei Mate X3, and even the first X Fold, which were able to give us a camera system that's closer to the slab flagship offerings, while this camera system is clearly a step back in hardware compared to like the Vivo X90 Pro Plus. But fortunately, Vivo has proven in the past couple of years that its software image processing is very strong, and the Zeiss T coating is still here covering the lens, so it will help reduce flare. Now, I've only had the phone for about a day and a half, and I have not been able to test the cameras a lot yet, but I've taken, about a dozen photos, and I think image quality is still quite good for a foldable phone. So I'm just going to show you some samples like this. So Vivo's excellent portrait vintage filter is still here, and I think this is a very good portrait shot. Now the screen looks great, as you can see, and there are symmetrical speakers on the left and right side that pumps out very full, lively volume. You chose Triple H. Unfortunately, one of the biggest software complaints I had about the first Vivo X Fold, which was the fact that you cannot split screen YouTube horizontally, you can only split vertically. That is still the issue here, and it's a little bit disappointing. You also cannot split Gboard when you're opening up Gboard on a large tablet-like screen. You cannot split this keyboard right now, and it's very frustrating because it's hard for me to type, needing to reach all the way to the middle. The battery in here is quite large at 4,800 milliamp hour, and yesterday I took this thing out. I used it, not super heavily, but I did use it outside all day, and I finished with like 40% battery life left. And you can charge this with the included charging brick at 120 watt speeds, and this thing supports wireless charging. You also get a nice case with the packaging. This case is also made from the same vegan leather, aka fake leather material right here. And this part, it's clear and it just snaps on. So you basically can put on the case and the phone looks almost exactly like you didn't put a case on it, except it's slightly bulkier now. Speaking of bulk, that is ultimately where my biggest disappointment lies with the Vivo X Fold 2. Now the Vivo X Fold 2, to be fair, has already slimmed down a lot from the original Vivo X Fold, which weighed 311 grams. If you remember my review of that, I said that phone was just a little bit too heavy to use as my daily driver. So this phone now slimmed down to 289 grams, and also the weight got trimmed to 13 millimeters. So it's not super thick or heavy. In fact, it's about on par with the Galaxy Z Fold 4. It's a little bit thinner than the Z Fold 4 actually, but a little bit heavier. But otherwise, these two phones' thickness and heft feel about equal. And that's a problem for me now in mid-2023 because I have held the Huawei Mate X3 and the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2. Both of those phones are significantly thinner and lighter than the Galaxy Z Fold 4 and also the Vivo X Fold 2. The Huawei Mate X3 in particular measures only like 11 millimeters in thickness. It weighs only 239 grams. So that phone is 50 grams lighter than the Vivo X Fold 2. 50 grams. The Xiaomi Mix Fold 2, it's a little bit heavier at like 250 something grams. That would still put it at 20 to 30 grams lighter than this phone. So I'm just a little bit disappointed that Vivo wasn't able to shed weight or thickness a little bit more, considering other Chinese brands have been able to do. So the only upgrades that the Vivo X Fold 2 brings over the first X Fold that I can think of is it has a newer Qualcomm Snapdragon chip. It has perhaps better software image processing, and it's a little bit thinner and lighter than the first X Fold, but it is still quite heavier and thicker than Xiaomi's foldable or Huawei's foldable, and that's a little bit disappointing to me. I expected a little bit more from Vivo, whose flagship phones have been, really good out of the box. Maybe I'm not being fair. If you're jumping to this phone from the first Vivo X Fold, this will feel much lighter. If you're jumping to this phone from the Galaxy Z Fold 4, this thing won't feel heavy or bulky. But if you're someone who have used the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2 or the Huawei Mix Fold 3, and then you pick this up, this thing feels a little bit bulky and heavy. So anyway, that's about it for this hands-on with the Vivo X Fold 2. This is not a full review. I've only had this phone for a day and a half. The full review will come after I've used it for about a week or two. This is just an early impressions. And maybe I will find that I'm being a little bit too harsh with the phone overall because I do like the software. I like Origin OS. So there are a lot of stuff I like, but just at first, the weight is a little bit disappointing to me. So anyway, I'll be back with more on this phone and other products too, so please stay tuned. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.